Hello everybody and Happy New Year. Wanted to thank y'all for watching the Metal Mill 52 YouTube channel, and congratulations on making it through 2020. I got some exciting stuff planned for this year. I thought I'd do a little recap video. Two things, recapping the recent steam test that we did back in the middle of November, and also talking about a few of the things I've got planned for this year. So first, to recap on the locomotive, the November run was basically about an hour long or so of testing and evaluating from everything, every little detail, from transporting the tender, which is over there, and the propane car, bringing them over. How would this all work? I fit inside a Chevy Traverse, and that all worked out, and it was a tight squeeze. I had to remove the roof from the caboose, the propane car, in order to fit in. Something I hadn't contemplated was the headroom, but it worked out, and we had a great test run, and a lot of little things. I'm kind of doing this video, part of my whole reason for having a channel was to share some experiences and things, and if for somebody who's a first-time locomotive builder like myself. So a couple of lessons learned. I covered the oil pump already. If you have the lubrication pump for the steam chest oil, these things here, just a recap on that. If you want to see the insides, the workings of the steam pump and the lessons learned, just look back a few videos and you'll find that. But I refilled it, I purged it from the oil, the air that was in there, and filled it up again. And I tested it with those disconnected, and so I could actually see the oil coming through the check valves to make sure that it gets into the steam chest. So I'm confident that that works okay. I actually took the piston covers off on the outboard end to look inside, examine the pistons, and when I replaced it, instead of using RTV, I had some gasket material, some rubber impregnated gasket material that I bought at an auto parts store. It's made by Felpro. So I carefully cut out gaskets and used a hole punch to punch holes for the screws that hold the steam chest cover on. I've used that when I replaced it, so in case I need to, the idea is if I need to remove them again, hopefully I won't, but it'll be a little bit easier than the RTV, because the RTV is very gooey, and you have to scrape it all off, and it's a chore to just to undo the steam chest covers. So that's two of the items. The third thing we found out in the test run, it's kind of a minor thing, but I have a beautiful whistle that I bought, steam whistle I bought from Loco Parts, and it sounds good on air. On steam, when we activated it here, we actually found that there was a little leak. Let me see if I can show you. Right here in this fitting, when I had silver soldered it originally, apparently I didn't do a very good job, so that fitting leaked, and happily my friends that were helping me test run it isolated that that's where the leak was. So I took this all apart and re-silver soldered that joint, and I will air test it again, but you can see a nice bead there of silver solder. I think we're in good shape there. The next thing that we noticed, and you'll see some commentary about that in the in some of the videos, the live videos from the test, there was an air leak in my supply line, water supply line to the injector. This is a steam injector. The steam comes down here. The steam valve for it is up here. It's a homemade from Fred's Design, and the water supply is here, and the water that goes out to the boiler is here. We found the water leak, or excuse me, the air, sort of a vacuum leak by we had the water connected, we applied steam, and it wasn't feeding properly. It was sputtering out here out the exhaust, and so we poured water over here, and when water was flowing, you could hear the injector working. and it was picking up and adding water to the boiler just fine. So we knew there was an air leak somewhere in here, so I took this whole assembly apart and tried to isolate. I redid a lot of these fittings here. Let me show you something else that ended up buying a new fitting for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and use the clear 5/16 inch clear plastic tube for the water supply. This is an HVAC fitting that I got at a local refrigeration supply store, and it's custom made that for this purpose, basically for having a flexible hose. I think they use them in mini split systems in houses. So the fitting was only a couple of dollars and it fit right in there. So I'm anxious to give this a try. Hopefully it'll work out well and make a good seal. Also, you can notice I have these color coded, and as silly as this sounds, this was actually, I built the tender literally 10 years ago or so, and I put the plumbing parts on and the hoses on a year or so ago. And when I added the hand pump inside the tender, I knew exactly where everything was supposed to go. Obviously, the injector water supply is simple, but I gotta say, I had to stop and scratch my head and look underneath the tender and look at the valves and fittings and all that to figure out which is which. Because one of these, the one with the blue tape on it here, that goes to the axle pump, and it's not regulated. It's just water all the time. And then the green one that I've marked here with this green tape is regulated. It's the bypass valve, which is right here. Also, I double nutted the bypass valves. They were in the water valve to the injector. I had a nice little a domed nut on there, but it was working its way loose, and it made it cumbersome to operate. So I fixed that, and I added the color-coded tape just to make it. There's a lot of things on your mind when you're a new operator and you're paying attention to all the little details. The last thing you need to do is to stop and worry about which connection goes to which place. So I labeled them with a Sharpie, and I know that'll wear off eventually, but I used this tape to color code it to make it idiot proof. And this is some awesome stuff. This Scotch colored, it's basically like colorful electrical tape. The reason I had bought this years ago when I did the Bridgeport, because of the wiring over there, it's a 3-phase supply, and I needed to color code, make it idiot proof on the wiring. So I had this left over, had a lot of this tape left over, and I thought it'd be the perfect use for me. So you can see I've got the blue and green and yellow color codes, and I put red here for, this is the vacuum hose to the ejector. I also shortened all these hoses up so they would not be, I cut off about 6 or 8 inches off of each one because they were too long, basically. So they're shortened and should be a good fit now. Let me show you on the back of the locomotive. It's you can see the tape, the green and the red and the blue and the yellow over there. So it's completely idiot proof now as far as where the water connections go. Speaking of fixing things, one other thing, and the thing I'm going to work on today, or this New Year's holiday, is the actuator for the cylinder cocks. I had built, when I originally built the locomotive, I had built this neat looking little actuator that kind of mimics the action of the Johnson bar, and this all sits below, from where my finger is here, this sits below the running board, and I just had this little 1.5 inch piece of 1/4 inch steel sticking up. And when I was building the locomotive, well, gee whiz, this was fine, because the thing was there and easy to reach. But when I built the cab, as you can see, I had marked, where is it down here, where the closed is. It's a little difficult to reach your hand in, your gloved hand in, way down there to open and close the cylinder cocks when you're getting going, and it's next to impossible to reach around the brake valve and get it. So what I'm going to do, I bought a longer piece of steel here. I was just playing around with lengths and shapes and so forth, and what I did, you can see the blue painter's tape I used. I marked basically where the new handle needs to end up. So I'll fabricate a handle and I'll make it much longer, and I might actually even bend it back a little bit so it's easier to reach from the window. So that's kind of my plan. Also, you know, when I was building this thing, I told you, if you saw those videos, that I was glad that I made the cab as easily removable as I did, and I still am, because there's just some small screws that hold it down to the running board, and so I'm able to mark that and then just lift it off very easily. I'm not going to do it now because it's a two-hand job, just because it's large and cumbersome, but it really makes it easy to facilitate changes and work on the. I had taken it off to redo that steam supply line to the whistle, and so I'll redo the actuator for the cylinder cocks. That's going to be coming up next. And what's interesting too is after I unscrewed it, I also had to unscrew it from these little fittings that I made here that go to the grab rails that are along the locomotive. So if you made yours that way, then don't forget to unscrew these too. So that's a little update on the locomotive. Oh, as far as projects for this coming year, the shaper, I bought a vise off of eBay, and I've already cleaned it up a little bit, and it's still got a ways to go, but I soaked it in Evapor Rust, got the rust off of it. I'll do separate videos about this and maybe publish stuff on my Instagram channel, which is called Metal Mill 52. But just to show you real quick, like I mentioned, the reason I wanted the Gingrey shaper is because I wanted to be able to build projects for like 3/4 inch scale size, and this vise should work. This is a steam chest for the LBSC Titch, and it hasn't been machined yet, but so I got it out to see if it would fit inside this little shaper vise. Well, it's going to be a shaper vise. It's a homemade shop project. You know, somebody built this in school or something. It's made out of steel. It's pretty heavy. It's probably 6 or 8 pounds, I guess, and it's got an Acme thread on here, but it needs some pieces. It needs a bearing made and inserted there so that the screw will actually work like it's supposed to, and it also needs cleaning up and relieving of all these sharp edges. That's something, you know, model engineers are good at, is softening the sharp edges, and this thing's got real sharp edges all over it, so it needs a little work. But it was a good bargain. Got it off eBay used, and it's not like I said, it's homemade. It's not a named part, so pretty happy with that. And it also came with these fasteners, none of which are exactly directly applicable, but I soaked all these in Evapor Rust as well. They were all rusty, so they've been soaked in Evapor Rust for a day and a half and then washed off and oiled, and I'm kind of letting them dry there. So I'll be working on that this year, and also making parts for the pillar tool, which I've got taken apart in pieces over here, and I'll be working on that as well this year. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the longer video, and I will keep you posted with progress on the next thing on the locomotive. We'll be replacing this with a longer handle, and then the next thing after that, we'll probably be ready to do an air test just using the air compressor hooked up directly to the locomotive, and with the locomotive lifted up on blocks, and make sure everything runs like it's supposed to. So thanks again for watching. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope 2021, like everybody else does, that is a better, more positive and healthy and happy year. We've made it this far. Let's keep on trucking. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.